Hello, Graham Roberts here. Right, the next thing we need to do to CRUD our table, create, read, update and delete, is to update it. Now, you can't really modify a record until it's in there. We actually have some records, as we can see from my website here, where I'm actually running a script that does this, the add insert new thing. That we've got 7 already, but that was done via insertion after creation of a table. I did a little video about that, but I'm going to go over insertion again in connection with, well, adding a new record. And to add a new record, what's different is that we're going to use a form to do so, and that's this thing here I've just highlighted. So, okay, how do we do that? I'll be showing in a moment just how to do that. Let's see it working. The thing ID is not something that we generate, it's auto generated. It's an auto increment primary key. The thing has, it's really a string if you like, it's a varchar type. It's got a question mark in it by default. Now that enables us to check in the script to see if the person has actually changed that question mark. If they haven't, then the new record they're putting in is really said to be wrong, that is invalid, because either if it's empty, there's nothing in it, or there's a question mark, it looks like the user hasn't really meant to put something into the table. And so this is meant to check the validity of data to maintain the integrity of the table. Another part of the form that does this is the add checkbox. If someone tries to add a record without clicking the add checkbox, it's disregarded by the system. So let's try it. Let's just insert a thing there's nothing in it. It comes up with you forgot the add confirmation checkbox, please try again. So I do so, and this time it says can't have that thing, and the reason is because it's got a question mark in it. If I take the question mark out of it and I still try to add it, I get the message I can't do that because it's an empty thing. Now let's put something in it that actually isn't empty. Let's have an elephant, that's a thing. And so I put elephant in, I say I want to add elephant, and so I insert an elephant, and in the confirmatory listing below, which is optional, I show it reverse order or descending sort order of the primary key. We see elephant has been added. So we've added a record. The code is shown down here, but we're going to go over some points about how we can actually write the script to accomplish this. If we have a quick look at the local host version, and we see in fact there is no difference, and really there shouldn't be. The development scripts should really perform in much the same way as the actual script, as we might say in the wild, on a real web server for people to use. Righto, so let's have a look at the script. The script for inserting a thing is actually called insert a thing, and I'm going to not go over the parts of the script that add style or connect to the database, disconnect from the database, and I'm not going to really explain too much about the result and the query configuration because I've covered those in earlier videos. What I'm going to do is just cover new things. Right at the top we have a function. I've put a function in here to show, because it's common to use functions, or indeed if you're using object-oriented PHP, they'll be called methods. But this function here is valid. It takes one parameter, $t, T for test here, and that test parameter is really a field. Usually it's a field on the form, and little comment here, can't be empty or unchanged from placeholder value, this being the placeholder. And I write a little selection here. If the variable is equal to nothing, that is an empty string, or it's equal to the question mark character, then we return false, not a valid entry, else we return true. Of course, in reality, these validity checks are much more exhaustive and complex than this one, but in principle it's the same. This is not where the processing starts. This is just where we put the function, so it's easy to find. The start of the processing is actually here, and it might be good to say something like start processing here, as I've done in other scripts. It just casts the eye down to where you actually start, because reading this doesn't really help, especially if you haven't seen the script running, to know what's going on. So we jump past the connection part, and we just make a quick mention here that the fields that we are going to be creating new values for, in fact there's only one field here, and that's the thing field, which is a string in effect. We're going to only capture that of significance here. And the thing ID, in a previous video I mentioned when I was reading back from a table that the thing ID, or the primary key, is usually always captured, even if in the case of the reading of the table I didn't do anything with it. Well, here we capture the thing ID, and that is going to be significant, since it's part of the table. However, the true significance of these primary keys and foreign keys depend on your project. Here's where we collect, which is new. The add variable collects from the checkbox. The checkbox is picked up as a field being passed or posted, and is put into this array handler here, or variable. So at line 30 we add a new record, and we ask the question if is set post submit button. This enables us to check whether the submit button was actually pressed or not. And well, one reason we might do this is to prevent a refresh of the page causing an inadvertent insertion, but it's shown here because using isSet as a check is also used not just to get neat non-errored no error warnings on the page, but is also used in security. So it's actually a good thing to do. Check that the submit button was actually pressed and it's not coming from a spurious place, but actually from a form. In line 33 we ask if the add variable has got the value insert. Well, it will have the value insert if it has been checked. If we look down at the form, we see in line 62 that we have an input tag, and the type is of course submit button, and the name is submit button, which we check for. Let's see if it's pressed, and the value is insert thing. But as I was just saying, the add button here in line 61 is of type checkbox, and the name is add and the value is insert. So it won't have a value unless it's selected. So going back up here, this is a very important check. It is going to only equal insert when it has been checked. Hence we can make the report back if it's not been checked that we saw. So here we say if add is equal to insert, and the action, if it has been checked, is to make another check to see if the record we're trying to put in is valid. Just there. But if the add button or checkbox, sorry, isn't selected, then we can print out that we forgot the add confirmation of the checkbox. Please try again, just here. Now, if the add checkbox is checked, then the thing being added or being attempted to be added is either valid or not. And we've been over what this is checking in the function up here. So you can go back to the beginning of this recording, this video, and see what I said about that, if that's not clear. So let's come back to line 31. It's been posted and it's come from someone actually selecting the submit button, or submitting the button, or submitting the form, pressing the button, which is submit button. And if that's true, they've selected the checkbox, and if the record is valid, then we do an insert. This is an if and only if situation. So we are protecting the integrity of the table. We set up a query string here in line 37, and the query string is insert into thing table thing values $thing. The $thing is something we created, remember, back up here in line 25, and is obtained from the form. The form has got the value of thing as an input box, name thing there, and the value is a question mark. We change that question mark into something like elephant, click the submit button having checked the add box, and that content picked up when the posted form is read back in, because the action is to call back itself, and in line 41 we actually submit the query and get back a result. As I've said in previous videos, I don't really check to see if this result is successful or not, or whether there's been a problem, because I'm keeping the script simple and we're just assuming, with crossed fingers, everything went fine. Now if we look down to line 54, hopefully, especially if you're familiar with HTML, what we're, let's call it, printing here, it should be straightforward. At line 66 we read back the table. This is just for confirmation that we've been successful, and probably In a real project you wouldn't be doing this here, but wait for the user to actually call to see if the table is correct from some sort of view or selection to read back. In this section here we simply print the table, and this is a read, and instead of showing the result of the read in a list box, we're showing it in a table. This technique of showing the records in a table rather than a list box with rows and columns is actually useful in what I might call multiple update options, where you're updating records that already exist, which we're going to be seeing in the next tutorial, part of the update process of the CRUD, where we can add a record, and then when we've added it we can modify it. So what I mean is, we get rid of this code. If I wanted to change this entry number 7, I can't modify it here. This is just here is just confirmation. They're made read-only boxes actually. If we want to modify one of these entries, we need to be able to edit them and use the modify command in SQL, and that's what we'll be doing next.